Open the podcast bay door as hell.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 65 of Welcome to Geektown. I'm your host, Kurt Onstead. I've been a proud geek all my life, being into role-playing games, board games, sci-fi, fantasy, and especially superheroes and comics. And I want to help others join me in those pursuits. But I've found that sometimes people can get overwhelmed or feel left out because they don't already have what some consider the requisite knowledge to be considered a fan. And that's where Welcome to Geektown comes in. Here, you can ask your questions without feeling like a gatekeeper is calling you out for not yet being fully versed in every aspect of your new interest. It's time for me to shout out this month's patrons: Aaron Borst, Matthew Saint, Lyndon Onstead, Utuk Zul, Carla Hoffman, Julio Herrera, and Forrest Woodward continue to earn my sincere thanks in their help in covering the costs of hosting this show. If you want your name added to this list, and to hear outtakes from nearly every episode and get scripts of past shows, simply visit patreon.com/welcome to Geektown and pledge $1 per month. Thanks! This week, instead of diving in deep on one question, I'm covering two different questions that I don't think could quite fill an entire normal-sized episode. First up, we have a question from Chris O., who wanted to know something related to a topic currently on everyone's mind. He wrote, "Could Logan transmit the COVID virus? He wouldn't contract it, but does his healing factor stop him from being a carrier?" For the completely uninitiated, Logan is the name that Wolverine goes by. It has been long established that Wolverine's healing factor not only allows him to quickly close up wounds and repair damaged organs, but that it also prevents him from contracting pretty much any disease. However, as we've learned, it's possible with COVID and other viruses to be completely asymptomatic and still be able to carry and spread a disease to others. Now, I'm not a scientist or doctor by any stretch of the imagination, so I went to some experts for their take on this, as well as using my own knowledge of Wolverine's powers from decades of reading comics starring the Canadian mutant. The collective response seems to be that, as part of his healing factor, Wolverine also has a hyper-vigilant immune system. Otherwise, he would be constantly dealing with bacteria and other complications from wounds inflicted on him. Fortunately for him, this immune system overdrive doesn't give him allergies as it does for some of us out there, as his system doesn't overreact to grasses, dust, pet dander, and other substances that would be otherwise harmless. Instead, viruses and bacteria that are recognized as unhelpful are immediately found and killed. So, overall, it seems that Wolverine would not be a carrier, and is safe to walk around without a mask. Which is good, because there have been scenes in the comics where he does so, in an environment known to contain deadly pathogens, while his teammates were all masked up. Quick side note, one person suggested that his healing factor immune system would expel the virus, just like bullets are pushed out when he heals. However, that's only the movie version of Wolverine that does this. In the comics, Logan has noted that foreign objects can and have gotten stuck in his body if they don't hit and bounce off of the adamantium skeleton, and that he tries to remove them before they heal over, but that he has had to dig objects out during his downtime, which is just as painful as one would imagine. Chris, I hope that answers your question. And everyone out there listening, unless you have a mutant healing factor yourself, please be sure to wash your hands, socially distance, and wear a mask. The world will thank you for it. Moving on to our second question of the episode. One of the show's patrons, Forrest, emailed a follow-up question to the little 2-minute episode I did for the Rode Microphones contest, which I did not win. Congrats, though, to A Lotto Thought, Lydia's Booktastic podcast, and Contemporary Issues, which did claim the 3 prizes. In that episode, I said that the great majority of heroes and villains with Doctor in their codename did actually earn that title. In that same episode, I quickly mentioned that military ranks like Captain and Major are also very common parts of superhero/villain names. And Forrest asked, how many comic book captains actually have the military rank of captain, or have earned that title through other means? Well, it turns out, unlike doctors, the answer is very few. Captain is probably the most commonly used rank for comic character names, but there are plenty of majors, sergeants, generals, colonels, commanders, lieutenants, and even a few privates as well. But let's start with arguably the most famous example, Captain America. He's interesting as he's one of the only characters who gets his rank as part of his superheroic origin. As most of you know, either from the movies or the comics, Steve Rogers wanted to join the military and fight in World War II, but due to health issues was rejected. When he was selected for the super soldier experiment, he was enlisted into the army as a private. Now, where his rank goes from there depends on your source. In the movies, he was promoted to captain. His insignia is visible when he's in his service uniform. In the original comics, he remained on base as Private Steve Rogers, and only a few select people knew that he was secretly Captain America. Some writers have stated that he still held the rank of private during that time, while others have said his rank was actually captain, but he pretended to be a private. In current continuity, while he still uses the title of Captain America, in any battlefield situation, he's almost always looked to as the commanding officer, with even 4-star generals usually following his orders. That, however, is more symbolic and a recognition of his top-notch strategic mind. What his exact rank actually is, again, varies from writer to writer, although everyone agrees that these days Captain is the bare minimum. Another hero who actually took a bit of a demotion by using the Captain moniker is Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. In the comics, by the time she adopted the name, go back to episode 14 for a deeper dive into her history, Carol had obtained the rank of colonel in the U.S. Air Force. She was later stripped of this when it was revealed that she is only half human. But she took the title of Captain Marvel to honor her mentor, the Kree known as Mar-Vell, who was actually the equivalent of a captain in his planet's military, although the actual rank name was Plus Commander. That covers a couple of Marvel characters. Over on the DC side, we have a hero and villain pair that exactly match their title and rank, at least in their post-crisis incarnations. If post-crisis doesn't mean anything to you, check out episode 1 of Welcome to Geektown, available as a podcast or through YouTube. Nathaniel Adam was a captain in the Air Force who had been wrongly accused of a crime and volunteered for a potentially deadly experiment in order to commute his sentence. That experiment ended up blasting him forward 18 years, and at the same time gave him immense nuclear-based superpowers that he now uses under the codename Captain Atom. Note, his last name is Adam, like the biblical first man, while his codename is Atom, like the smallest unit of matter. The man who framed Nathaniel was General Wade Eiling. Grant Morrison later used that same character in his JLA run as an anti-superhero military man who hypocritically became a super being himself by loading his consciousness into the mindless body of an immortal being known as the Shaggy Man. In that form, he was simply known as the General. In addition to these two, Commander Steele, aka Henry Haywood, of the All-Star Squadron, was also an actual commander in the Marines when he went by that codename. He's an interesting case as he has a couple of successors to his title in the form of his grandchildren, Hank and Nathan Haywood. However, unlike the various Captain America replacements, talked about in episode 7, they refused to bestow false honor upon themselves, and since neither of them were in the military, they went by Steele and Citizen Steele, respectively. Another quick side note, this Steele is unrelated to the other Steele in the DC universe that was one of the Superman replacements talked about in episode 15. However, if you go through the vast list of captains, majors, generals, and the rest, you'll find very few actually have much, if any, military service in their background. This is especially true of the majors, as many of them are using the word more as an adjective than a rank, like Major Victory, Major Disaster, and Major Minor. One of the things I find interesting is that there are a few privates, including a temporarily de-aged Captain Cold who used Private Cold as his nom de guerre during that time, but we don't see any ensigns. Not sure what that says exactly, but I found it curious nonetheless. Now, this is ignoring all of the characters in comics who actually are part of the military but don't have superpowers, like the Hulk's constant nemesis General Ross and his successor Major, later Colonel, Talbot, or Lois Lane's father, General Sam Lane. Similarly a thorn in Superman's side, although usually more covertly than General Ross is with the Hulk. Policemen like Lieutenant Stone of the NYPD Code Blue Team, dedicated to arresting supervillains even though the team members themselves have no powers, also abound in comics. But I doubt that Forrest had these people in mind when he was asking his question. We've covered a couple of interesting topics today, and that's thanks to my listeners asking some great questions. I'm always looking for more topics that you want to hear covered, so please send me an email at welcome2geektown, all spelled out, @gmail.com. Or you can go to welcome2, the number 2 in this case, geektown.com, and click Submit a Question if you'd prefer to remain anonymous. Other contact options include facebook.com/welcome-to-geektown or Twitter @geektownpodcast. Also, if you'd like to support the show directly, come join the Patreon at patreon.com/welcome-to-geektown for just $1 per month to get access to full scripts of the shows, outtakes, and a monthly shoutout. You can also help the show grow by subscribing and giving a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts to join the Geektown City Council, which helps other people find the show so we can all tell them, "Welcome to Geektown, population, us." Welcome to Geektown is written, narrated, edited, and produced by me, Kurt Onstead. Theme music is by Aaron Levitz, logo art by Archie Santana. All other sound clips are the copyrighted material of their respective owners, and no infringement is intended, falling under fair use.